Friends, I've been trying to tell you some things have been happening in the last few days over in Syria that are shaking the entire Middle East. And right now, things are happening so fast that I can't really even keep up with it. Nobody can keep up with it. Nobody really has a firm understanding of what is happening, but we're going to try to track with you and show you some of the things that have happened in the last few days and start giving you some of the unconfirmed reports of what has happened in the last few hours. And we're going to project what's going to happen in the next few hours, which is probably going to happen in the next day or so. We're probably going to see a full capitulation by the Assad government in Syria. They are about deposed. There are some pockets that are holding up, and we may see a couple of these pockets hold out for a while. There is rumors out there that there is a deal on the table right now, that they may have already signed some sort of agreement. Nobody's sure where Assad is right now, and things are developing rapidly. All right, friends, let's bring you up to speed real fast here. First off, we need to talk about where is Syria. For those of you who are not super familiar, that's me. I'm in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh. You got your Middle East over here, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Israel over here. And then, of course, up here, smack dab between Turkey, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, and then you got Lebanon over there is Syria. Now, up until about 10 days ago, this is kind of what things look like. Green areas are various rebel groups. Blue is occupied by Israel. That's the Golan Heights. They've held that for a while. That's nothing new. The yellow area is kind of like Kurdish-controlled SDF plus U.S.-backed Kurds. That's up against the Kurdish. Well, you're not supposed to say Kurdistan, but I'm going to say it anyway. Kurdistan, Iraq up there. So this is mostly Kurdish kind of controlled areas, U.S.-backed areas, U.S.-backed oil fields. U.S.-controlled oil fields are over in this area over here in eastern Syria. And so the Turkish-backed ISIS guys and Al-Qaeda are up here. Now, we've had a ceasefire for a while, and so there hasn't been any major fighting, major campaigning, and the red area controlled by the Assad government. Now, just as of a day and a half ago, this is what suddenly things were looking like. They captured up here in the north. I'll get this on the Google Maps a little bit bigger here. They captured, and get my bearings, where's Aleppo? There it is. Aleppo, it's a big city up in the north. They fought over this heavily, and that's about as far as they've gotten. They've been fighting in Idlib before, you may recall that. But generally speaking, the Assad government kind of held this line here. And then, boom, suddenly they're on the outskirts of Hama down here, which is on the outskirts of Homs, which is on the outskirts of Damascus. So, like I said, when we're hearing just yesterday that Hama had fallen and that their troops were moving on Homs, that's big news. We heard overnight that the Russians blew up a bridge leading into Homs to try to stop these guys. But we're now hearing that Homs not only has fallen with the Syrian army troops falling back south, but we're hearing that the northern groups have gotten troops all the way into the outskirts of Damascus down here. They're basically not running into much opposition at all, if that's how far they've gotten. So we see on the map here, the green is just pushed all the way down to Homs, but in fact, it's gone even further than that. So troops coming from Aleppo, apparently maybe even kind of bypassing Aleppo is kind of how they got to Hama so fast. I don't know. We got American-backed totally not American-backed people coming over the border from Jordan, even though Jordan is a strong U.S. ally and U.S. has a whole bunch of troops there. And we have people right in that area down there. And then, of course, down here on the Jordanian border there, they're moving up north and are now in the outskirts of Damascus themselves. So pushing up from the south in the outskirts of Damascus, but then we're also seeing potentially maybe this wing is in the outskirts of Damascus. I don't know. To get from Homs all the way down to Damascus that fast is in a matter of hours, means that they're not really meeting much opposition. So there's Homs, which has reportedly fallen, and that's big news out there. But that's what the reports are coming, is that not only Homs has fallen, but the Syrian army was pulling out their tanks and their weapon systems and everything like that, and pulling out. We have videos out there circulating of Syrian army troops changing into civilian clothes. We saw this basically when the United States was going after Iraq. We saw that happening when the army was like, we're done fighting. This isn't going to happen anymore. And we're seeing that happening out there too. Video evidence of that. Like I said, it's going to take some time for a bunch of this stuff to be confirmed, but there's a lot of reports and there's video evidence of people in neighborhoods rising up and tearing down statues, ripping down banners of Assad. Assad is not a good guy. An evil, very much on the level of Saddam Hussein. Okay, Assad tortured people, imprisoned political opponents, persecuted religious minorities. Just go down the list. Not a good guy. His regime has been a terror upon the country. With the rising up here, I am going to say this, though. What happens next is not necessarily going to be a good thing for Syria. There's hope. There's hope out there that there will be a democratically elected, constitutionally protected rights government coming out of this. And I'm going to say that's probably, that looks like a pipe dream. All right. One thing I didn't mention as of this far is the movement of the Kurdish forces out here, SDF, as well as its other Kurdish units. They've captured crossings across the Euphrates, and that's big deal right there. There's not all that much out here. It's mostly desert, so they're going to move relatively quickly through these towns and such. We're going to see them probably pull up into here. So people are already starting to talk about partitioning the country, because we got some significantly, the religious groups are kind of diverse in Syria. So as you can see, pushing down in there, I think that kind of brings things up. Let me give you Donald Trump's take on things, shall I? Opposition fighters in Syria. This is from Donald Trump. Opposition fighters in Syria, in an unprecedented move, have totally taken over numerous cities in a highly coordinated offensive and are now on the outskirts of Damascus, obviously preparing to make a very big move toward taking out Assad. Russia, because they are so tied up in Ukraine and with the loss of over 600,000 soldiers, seems incapable of stopping this literal march through Syria. That's the thing, is it's multiple marches coming from different directions. They're fighting. They're basically being surrounded by numerous columns of rebels. All right. Russia has been doing airstrikes and trying to stop things, but that's not really going very well. This is where former President Obama refused to honor his commitment of protecting the red line in the sand, and all hell broke out with Russia stepping in. But now they are, like possibly Assad himself, being forced out, and it may actually be the best thing that can happen to them. There was never much of a benefit in Syria for Russia other than to make Obama look really stupid. In any event, Syria is a mess, but is not our friend. Well, we've been fighting against Syria, so I sure hope not, friend. But this is the big point. And the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved, which is, yeah, I mean, we are involved. The United States is heavily involved in Syria. We have thousands of troops on the ground, and anyone who says differently is just wrong. We are guarding oil fields all across eastern Syria. We have troops allegedly down here in this bubble, doing support activities, training, and definitely across the border here in Jordan. We have troops. That's a known thing. We've had troops killed via drone strikes down there. We know that there has been U.S. troops in this area up on the Euphrates River, and with this push here, and then we have bases all across the Kurdish areas that have U.S. soldiers in them, pushing all the way up this way towards along the Turkish border. We have U.S. troops and bases all along here. You can look that up separately yourself. That has been exposed and shown in the past. But the big news out there, too, is that Iran, who has been a major supporter of Syria, has just released a statement basically saying to the New York Times that if the Syrian army will not fight, how can we save Syria? So Iran has ordered their Quds force. They have also ordered their Hezbollah forces out of Syria. And so high-level Iranian operatives and such have been flying out of Damascus over the last day or so. And we've seen basically the Iranians are pulling their support. Lebanon, that sticks up right up here, right? Lebanon has apparently closed all of its borders to Syria. I don't know if they're not letting any Hezbollah through or if they're only letting Hezbollah through, but they're not allowing civilians through. But that is big news there because we have the troops coming up from the south. Are there going to be a lot of Hezbollah forces captured? Possibly. There is report of a major Israeli airstrike. There have been airstrikes across the country, but it looks like what Israel's doing is attacking Syria's chemical weapons plants and their chemical weapons to keep them out of the hands of the rebels. Because remember, this is ISIS and Al-Qaeda coming down with this main thrust from the north. Those are not good guys. Now, there's videos out there of Christians celebrating in the streets. Like I said, Syria is religiously diverse. Just to give you an idea of kind of what we're working with here, 74% of the country identify as being Sunni Muslim. 13% identify as being Shia Muslim. And depending on who you ask, somewhere between 2.5% and 10% of Syria identify as Christian. So the United States State Department apparently at one point said that they believe that Syria is 10% Christian. Most people put it more like between 2 and 5%. And some people just trying to take the middle ground there, saying 5 to 6%. It's hard to say. But one thing that for a lot of people who are concerned about Christians, because if you're a Christian or as a Western person, something to be aware of is the fact that the Christians have, over the recent past, backed the Assad government, basically because they were not being persecuted too badly from the Assad government, and that the Assad government was kind of seen as the better of two evils because he kept the Sunnis from, tossing Christians in the river in cages or burning them at the stake. They kind of made their peace with Assad, even though Assad's doing horrible things to Kurds and other folks in other parts of the country. And because of that tacit support, they got even more favorable treatment from Assad. And so a lot of Christians do live in the Damascus region around there and Homs and such. But we may see these Sunnis coming down from the north, ISIS and Al-Qaeda folks, as they come south, we may see them persecuting the Christians, not only for being Christians, but also for being supporters of the Assad government and the Assad regime. So, over the coming days, looking into my crystal ball of what's going to happen here in Syria, I think a few things are looking probable. It looks like Damascus is done for. It doesn't look like there's enough sustained opposition from the Syrian army or from any of its allies to really hold Damascus for any length of time. Now, there may be some delaying actions, but Assad, if he has his head screwed on straight, is going to be trying to get out of the country. If the Russians are going to want to get out of the country, the Iranians are already on the way out. Russia and China have already told all of their citizens yesterday to get out of Syria. That was my first indication that things were really serious. And then when I saw the Iranians saying that they were pulling out all of their military support because and as they put it, the Syrian army isn't fighting. The Syrian army is collapsing and disappearing into the general population. That really tells you all you need to know there. So the question now is, one, are there going to be holdouts, especially up here along the coast? The Russians may, but as you can see with the capture of Homs, it makes it really difficult to get from Damascus up to that coastal area, unless you can get through Lebanon, which apparently those border crossings are closed. So the people in Damascus really don't have anywhere to go. They got rebels coming up from the south. They got rebels coming in from the east. They got rebels coming in from the north. And they got a wall on their west. Where are they supposed to go? There really isn't anywhere to go. So there may be holdout areas along the coast here. These are loyalist areas, and they also can have Russian naval support. So these areas might hold out for a bit. Maybe as part of negotiations or what. They probably can't hold out for a very long time. If these rebel forces then turn their attention on them, they're toast. So they may just decide to quit. Not really sure what will happen with that. So over the next 24 to 48 hours, I anticipate us seeing some sort of capitulation from the Assad government. Right now, there are reports that Assad has fled the country, but the Assad government regime is saying very firmly that Assad is hard at work in his palace in Damascus, and that he has not fled and will not flee, blah, 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 blah. But of course, they have to try to make the Syrian army feel confidence in order to hold the line. But whether that's true or not, I'm going to lean towards maybe not. He's either not in Damascus or he is looking to get out of Damascus as quickly as possible. He saw what happened to Saddam Hussein. So where can he go? He can go to Iran. He can go to Russia. I don't know. But so that's probably going to happen in the next day or so. And then it's going to become a real what happens next? Who's in charge? We have like 6 main rebel groups, and of those rebel groups, there's varying degrees of alliances between them. What part will the Kurds have? And the Kurds aren't even one thing. There's the Iraqi Kurd group that's in Syria, and then you have the SDF, and then there's the other one. And those two don't really get along with each other like super well, but they kind of coordinate with each other. And then you get the Free Syrian Army, and then you have, HST, and then you got all the other factions and groups part of the main body coming in here. And then you got the U.S.-backed Free Syrian Army. I think that's mostly them there. And then you have these groups down here that have just spontaneously popped up out of the ground. I don't think we even know who these people are right now. I'm sure CIA and all those people organizing this thing know who these people are. But are they coming over from Turkey? Are these spontaneous revolutions? They sure seem to be well equipped if they're seizing border posts and everything like that. Are they Israeli-backed, Israeli-sponsored? I don't know. So who are these groups down here? Are they going to want a seat at the table? who's going to capture Damascus first, and are all these groups going to start pointing their guns at each other? Or are they all going to sit down and have a peace accord brokered out by the CIA and Turkey? And is it just going to be where a whole bunch of countries outside Syria sit down at a table and partition up this thing and make the decisions and then tell the rebel groups? Because a lot of these rebel groups are they look like puppets of outside forces. They're heavily sponsored and supported and trained by outside people. So you got your U.S. backed people, you got your Jordanian backed people, you got your Turkish backed people, you got your Iraqi Kurdistan backed people. You got all these different groups. And is it those groups that are going to sit down and talk, or are all the sponsors of these groups going to sit down and talk? Or is it going to be all of the above? It's going to be an absolute train wreck. I'm sure these groups have thought about if they had any idea that this was going to move as quickly as it did. They had to have hashed out some ideas of what they're going to do on day zero when Damascus falls and the Assad government is gone. But we're going to find that out in the coming days, in the coming hours. Are there going to be massive persecutions against the Kurds? Are there going to be massive persecutions against Christians? What about the Druze? The Druze have been rebel forces. They've captured a bunch of the southern areas. So we do know that those groups are kind of Druze, made up of Druze soldiers, apparently. But what's going to happen here? Is ISIS and Al-Qaeda going to demand that a caliphate get established and that the Islamic State of Levant, ISIL, is established? They very may well want that when they get there. And anyone who opposes them, it may turn into a civil war sideways very quickly. So things are developing very quickly. Like I said, nobody's really quite sure what's happening out there because these units are moving so quickly. They're trying to gobble up as much territory as possible because probably it's going to be very important as they move into this next stage of negotiations. The more territory they have, the more military equipment they've captured from Syria, the more air bases that they control. All these things are going to probably be taken into account in peace talks after the war. All right, friends, that is kind of what I'm seeing here and trying to give you an idea of everything going on out there. I know it's not great. The information is trickling in and there's just reports all over the place. How much of it is even true? I don't even know. How many of these things are mistaken? You have a bunch of people start celebrating and tearing down some posters and stuff like that, and it's really just civilians doing that. It may still be under Syrian government control, and there may be no rebel forces in the neighborhood, and yet we're seeing that pinpoint showing up, and it looks like it's been liberated, but maybe it hasn't been liberated. Maybe it's just a local demonstration. So there's lots of bad reports happening out there, but the general gist of those reports are that rebel troops are apparently in the outskirts of Damascus, both from the south and the north. So we'll see in the coming hours as this starts to pan out, but I fully anticipate seeing a collapse of the Assad government in the near future. All right, friends, hopefully that helps. And obviously Israel is watching this very nervously. They don't want a lot of those weapons falling in the hands of some of these crazies. And, they don't like the idea of Turkey being so close to them. But they are relieved that this supply corridor, because missiles were going across Syria, Iranians were taking these missiles across Syria into Lebanon and down to southern Syria to fire at northern Israel. So this really does cut the Iranian travel corridor, which may mean less pressure on Israel's north. So that's their concern with that. All right, friends, keep posted for new updates. We'll keep you updated as fast as things are coming out and getting confirmed. But if you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. If you want to check out a how-to video over on my prepper channel, which is not news-based, but is practical-based. I just put out another video over on Poplar Prepper, and I'll put that right on the screen right there. Thanks so much for watching. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.